Hey everybody, just want to shoot a little bit of video in lieu of an around the world update here. I know I haven't shot one in a while, but I've got a project I'm working on, the far end of the room where the 29 gallon and my crab tank and all that, the end of the room where you enter. I'm actually moving some stuff around and doing some things, and I don't want to reveal any of it until I've got it all sorted out and finished, and then I want to have a big reveal video. So we're not going to do an all the way around the world tour here tonight, but we are going to go around, look at some tanks, have a chat, and it'll be about as close as I can get to doing an around the world update just now. And then by next week, hopefully, we'll be back to doing some more regular type videos. I really don't have much going on at all in my Gourami tank here, so there's not really any point, excuse me, in talking about it. I will say that the other day I startled my striped Raphael, and it was under this cave. And by this cave, I mean this cave where that loach just went. And if you see that bright rock right here, that was actually under this flat rock. I had that flat rock propped up with this rock underneath of it, and that was what gave a little bit more space. That was one of the original adjustments I made. The way we're looking at it now is how I originally had set the tank up. I had added that white rock later as a sort of fix for my striped Raphael getting so much bigger. And then the other day, when he got startled, he dashed out of there so hard. I don't know if his tail hit the rock, or maybe he bumped the rock above and just shifted the whole thing. But that rock fell out of there. The cave sort of half collapsed, and now he's got even less room in there than he did before. So as soon as I'm done working on this project that I'm actually sort of leaning on at the moment, the next one will be getting in here and working on this. So hopefully in another week or so, we're going to be making some big changes here to the Gourami tank. So a lot of good stuff going on here in the fish room right now. I really kind of wish I had waited till the weather was a little worse and I was sort of stuck down here doing it. But I'm doing it for other reasons. I'm kind of pressed for time. I have to do it now, so it's getting done now. The T-bar tank here, not much going on in this tank except for the water change I did yesterday. And I got in there with a toothbrush and I scrubbed the leaves on my Anubias here. I did shoot a video about it. I'm not sure what it was that was on the leaves, and still is, honestly. I mean, I didn't clean them off completely. I did a mediocre job. I'm hoping that the rubber lip that's in there will now start cleaning the leaves a little better, since I got such a good start on it for them. And I think it's just a stew of different stuff on there. I think it's some cyanobacteria in there. I think it's a little bit of blackbeard algae. It's probably just little bits of detritus all collected on it. I really do think it's a sort of mishmash of everything. It was really tough on the leaves. It did not come off easily. I really had to brush. Now I'm using a soft bristled toothbrush, so it's not like I was in there with a jackhammer slamming on it. But I still had to brush pretty thoroughly just to get them as clean as I got them. So now we're just going to wait and see whether or not the rubber lip that's in there does anything. And I'm also working on, I'm reluctant to even say this because I don't want to get everybody's hopes up, but I'm working on getting a fancy pleco. I've been talking to Mike down at House of Tropicals. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, and he seems to think that while a green phantom might work in my water, he hasn't seen them in a while, and he doesn't think they'd be ideal. And so he's keeping his eye out for a few other species that will be pretty exotic and interesting, but will also be a little more hardy for the slightly more dissolved solids I have in my water than a lot of these fancy plecos can take. Typically, whenever you get into the fancy plecos, general rule of thumb is think soft water, and my water is just not really good for those fish that really need soft water. I'm not going to get into that again now. But we'll see. Again, that's just something I've thrown out there. I've got Mike working on it. He's going to ask some questions. He's talked to his guy. And right now there's nothing available, but we're going to see what we can do. My black ghost knifefish made a huge appearance the other day. He was out for minutes. Literally minutes swimming around the tank. I got a few little video clips. I did one long video where I we just got 5 or 6 minutes of him swimming around, and I'm not too worried about his size anymore. I was beginning to think that maybe he was outgrowing the tank a little bit, but after seeing it swim around the tank, I think that it probably wouldn't hurt to get in there and maybe do a little bit of remodeling and rearranging. This tank hasn't changed since the day I set it up, with the exception of some of the plants have come and gone. So it might be time to get in there maybe and do a little more remodeling, but that's going to be on the back burner for now. I've got these other projects that are going on that really need to get done. The one that I'm working on plus the gourami tank are both pretty big projects that I'm going to focus on before I worry about doing anything in this tank. Otherwise, everything in here looks pretty good. I did go back to House of Tropicals. Last week I was going to get another addition to this tank. If you saw my fish store video where we walked around there, I stopped and looked at some red-eyed swordtails that were amazing looking. They looked like betta fish, Chinese fighting fish with the long flowing fins, and their eyes were the exact same color as their bright red bodies. So it almost looked like they didn't even have eyes. They were just this solid red fish with these amazing flowing fins. And they were $30 a piece. So I've never seen a swordtail for $30. But I was going to go back and get one. I didn't really have the money for it, so I'm kind of glad they were sold out. But I was going to put that in here so I'd have that Dalmatian, which looks like a black molly, but it is in fact a Dalmatian. And then, of course, I've got this silver molly, which I believe has sailfin genetics in it, and then I would have had that gorgeous red swordtail in here to complement the mollies, but it wasn't to be. They were sold out when I got back down there, so we'll see if he gets them in again. He said they don't come around very often, but he does get them from time to time. Once or twice a year they come in, so we'll see. I'm going to keep my eye on that for the future. That was one of those fish that just grabbed me, and I really, really wanted to take it home. Now I kind of wish I did. See, that's one of the benefits of those spur-of-the-moment impulse buys. If I had bought it, I'd have it right now. I decided to wait, and by the time I got back there, they were all gone and sold out, and it might be another year before I see them again. So in this case, I really wish I'd gone for my impulse buy. But anyway, I didn't. My native tank here, I'm working on some kind of lag time here. I keep talking about the former tank as we've moved on to the next one. Native tank, not a lot's going on with this. All I've done really is a water change. I've had some dead crayfish. I just took another one out tonight. Not really sure what's going on. They don't look beat up or anything. They just seem to stop moving, and are just, the one was in the same position. I actually went in and checked this, a little while ago, because I was scratching my head thinking, like, wasn't that one sitting exactly there last night? Like, it could not possibly have not moved in 24 hours. And when I picked it up, sure enough, it hadn't moved in 24 hours. It was dead. So, no idea what's up with that. But the only real difference in this tank is the big sore thumb piece of wood you're looking at right now. And this is only in here because my quarantine tank that's in the other room where this was, it didn't fit in it. It actually stuck out the top a little bit. And I have some fish in there right now that need a lid, so I just sort of have a piece of plexiglass sitting over top the tank, and it wouldn't have fit over top the tank properly with this piece of wood in it. So in order to keep it waterlogged, I want to keep it submerged. I don't want to let it sit out for 6 weeks and dry out. So it's going to have to sit in this tank because I don't really have any other place to put it unless I go out and buy like a cattle feed tub or something out in the backyard and fill it up and put it in there, but I'm not doing that either. It is growing on me a little bit right now. You probably can't see it, but right in here, the crayfish is sort of taking up residence. Every time I come in here now, I can see that crayfish in there. So that's his little home. He lives in that piece of wood. So it's pretty cool. As I've said, it's as much habitat as it is visual appeal in the tank. And so while it does sort of juxtapose itself to the rest of the tank, it doesn't really fit in there properly. Like I said, it's growing on me, I guess. I don't know. I'm not hating on it anymore, but we'll see. So that's pretty much the big deal with that tank. My snail tank is doing exactly what I expected it to do. Now that I've got all of the shrimp out of here, you can see the snails are just in there breeding like crazy, so Butterbean's got plenty of food. My gudgeon tank, which still has the playlist listed as the Gudgeon / T-Bar tank, or vice versa. But this is my gudgeon tank. It also shares the tank with a rubber lip pleco, and those are the only two fish that are in the tank. And I recently put a new hood on this tank. I'm not going to get into reasons why right now. I did shoot a little video talking about that. I'll attach a card if you want to see that video. But I will forewarn you, I didn't really go into a ton of detail in that video either. I am working on a project, and I swapped some hoods around, etc. So check that video out if you want. The long and short is, with the nice, bright, brand new hood that isn't filthy, dirty glass like the old one, a lot more of that light goes through there. It looks like I put brand new lights on the tank, but I didn't. That's just a new, nice, clear hood. If I had actually cleaned the other hood, it probably would have looked like this. But now that I've got it so brightly lit, I'm considering changing the lighting around. Again, the other video was all about the fact that I'm considering changing the lighting around, so you can watch that if you're interested. But in the short version of it is that I'm thinking about lowering the lighting on this tank because the gudgeon is a fish that doesn't like really bright light. Now, the upshot is this tank is so heavily planted, you can see he can just chill out in the darkness anytime he wants. He doesn't have to stay right out in the really bright light. But I'm thinking about removing some of these plants. Again, don't want to go into too many details, but I can probably use some plants in another something that I've got going on right now. And this tank has an abundance of the Java fern, which is really low maintenance, low lighting, it's really easy to grow. And so I think I might be pilfering some of this Java out of this tank. And if that's the case, this gudgeon may not have so many places to hide in the darkness, and I may want to reduce the lighting. So we'll see. I don't know. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any of that kind of stuff. Whenever I do post updates on all this stuff, I try to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. My 125, and this is where we're going to stop. Nothing really at all going on in this tank this week. I haven't done anything other than a water change, and that was just a simple basic water change. I didn't mess with the filter or do any, nothing. I just wiped the glass down and did a water change. That's about all there is to say about it. And that's it, honestly. I can't really think of anything else at all to say about this tank. It's sort of a big nothing happening to it this week. Again, I've got some other stuff going on, and I've been having some foul weather, so I haven't been in the best of moods. I do really tend to get glum and gloomy when it's cold and rainy and wet outside, and as much as I want to come down here and make good use of that time, I seldom do, and I usually wind up napping through the day, and so I haven't been getting a lot done. I really should be further along in the project that I'm working on now, and then I can get back to doing some more routine maintenance in here. For example, I can take this fern, which is doing well, it's growing just fine, but it's not growing where I want it. I want it growing in such a way that it blocks that ugly, blunt, artificially cut end off of this piece of wood. So that's a simple, minor little thing to do, but I do want to get in there and make that change. And now that I'm looking, I can actually see a little bit of roots hanging down off the tip of one of those fern leaves, and that's how they propagate. The leaves will actually develop little babies growing off of them, much in the way the water sprite does. So that plant is doing, it's not thriving or anything, but it's doing well enough that it's producing offspring. So pretty soon I might be able to spread some of that fern around a little bit. And then other than that, I really cannot think of a whole lot else to say. I will say again to go check out my Patreon page. I've done a lot of behind the scenes kind of video over there. My patrons over there know exactly what I've got going on in here. The only thing that my patrons don't know about yet is what fish I have in my quarantine tank. And that is going to be revealed to my patrons when I get 35 patrons. And I'm sort of stuck at 28. I haven't really gotten any new patrons in over a week now. So not going to do that big reveal until I get my 35 patrons. None of the fish are in a situation where they really need to get out of the quarantine tank, so as far as I'm concerned, they can stay in there for weeks and weeks if necessary. Honestly, they still have several weeks to stay in there anyway, so I'm not in any huge hurry. But when I get to 35 subscribers, or patrons on my Patreon page, we will do a behind-the-scenes look at what I've actually got going on in there. And, of course, in the long run, they'll eventually make their way into my tanks and get their permanent homes, and everybody will see them, whether you're a patron or you're just a YouTube viewer or whatever. I also don't want to get everybody's hopes too up on these fish I've got in my quarantine tanks, because they're not anything, fabulous or anything. I don't have any super exotic species. It's just new fish that are going in some tanks. And I have 6 fish, but I do not have 6 different species. I will say that. I have 3 distinct species and 6 individuals. So there's your little hint and teaser for what I've got coming up. And once again, I'll say at least make sure you're subscribed here to my YouTube channel, and then that way you don't miss any of the videos I've got coming up. And when these videos do get released and we find out what I've got and so on and so forth, it'll all be good, exciting stuff when it finally comes out. So make sure you're subscribed here. Don't forget, here is my 125. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.